thank you for hanging out after lunch and listening to me tell you a little bit more about the United States Digital Service. It is incredibly exciting for me, and I felt so much happiness today just to be back here at home at Google and to share this story with you all. So I'll first, before I jump into all the work that we're doing at the federal level, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Who am I? I am a lover of data. I studied computer science at Georgia Tech. I also founded the Atlanta chapter of Unite for Sight while I was in college when we were looking to eradicate blindness or preventable blindness around the world, mainly cataracts. I went to this thing called the Imagine Cup. Those of you who are from or familiar with Microsoft know that it is an international competition similar like the World Cup, but instead of for soccer, it's for tech nerds who want to solve social problems. And our team brought home first place for the US. So I have this weave of public service throughout my life and career. And there's a photo of Google Health up there because it wasn't until I joined the Google Health team that I realized I can do something with my career in technology and healthcare as like my day job. I had no idea that even existed. And I included a photo of me surfing just because it's something that I just also really love doing. And my husband, who's here in the front, was the one who taught me how to do so. But also, in addition to that, I am what I call a hospital hustling, cancer fighting patient advocate for my mom who has beat leukemia twice. And we spent many countless days and hours. She's actually right here. So thank you to Women Techmakers for inviting my family out. And I just have to say, talking to a room full of women is very, very exciting, but having your mom in the front row is extremely scary. And so with all of that, with these things that I have found in my life, whether I chose them, like computer science and public service and entering these crazy competitions, or having cancer just fall into our lap and having to figure out how to deal with that, I'll talk about how that led me to this place where I somehow found myself as the First Lady's guest to the State of the Union address, an event that I got to share with my brother, who's a captain of the Marine Corps, and also work on something that is now known as the startup of this man, the President of the United States Digital Service. And while there, I got to do some pretty exciting things. I got to focus on a very national level, looking into issues that deal with STEM. This is something called SOSTEM, which is like the State of the Union address, but instead is the state of science, technology, engineering, and math. And there was a panel last year that I contributed to, which was pretty exciting. And I have to give a shout out to Megan here. Since some of you may know, she kicked off Women Techmakers. An incredible woman is now the CTO of the United States. But Women Techmakers wouldn't be what it is today without people like Stephanie Lynn and Natalie, who's around, who have built this thing into what it is today. So thank you to them for having us here. So what am I doing? We are trying to build a more awesome government for the people, by the people, today, now, with groups like the Presidential Innovation Fellows, 18F, the United States Digital Service, agencies across the federal government, and the White House. So this is the group that I am a part of. And a little bit about how I got involved with this. I was just minding my own business at Google, doing analytics internally for Google, and I got this call from Mikey at the White House, who was kind of starting up the US Digital Service. We were about like 8 or 10 people at the time, and he basically said, so we need someone who knows healthcare and data. Sounds like you might know a few things. Come serve your country, come to the White House, and help out for 3 months, because Google has a sabbatical program that lets you leave for 3 months. Turns out I came for 3 months. My first day there, I remember sitting in a room with 3 of the most incredible women I'd ever met or worked with, and thought, I can't go back. Google's an amazing place, but I can't go back. This is my new home. So I took a 3-month sabbatical and stayed on with the federal government, working on what is deemed Obama's stealth startup, which is basically a tech startup inside the White House. And I like to think of it as the president's kind of like our CEO, the venture capitalists are all the taxpayers, all of you. People are already paying us for these services. There's no reason why they should suck, and we need to make them better. So that's why all these amazing people in this photo here are there in the federal government. Some of the brightest people I've ever met, and I'll tell you more about them going forward. And I love this photo because the president is sometimes called the coder-in-chief. He really did. Someone made a side comment of, oh, he probably didn't really write any code. And Megan stepped in and was like, no, he wrote a couple of lines of Python. So that was pretty exciting. How often does that happen? And we love this. So I'll tell you more about what we're doing at the federal level. And I'll go through a couple of the projects and give shout outs to a couple of my colleagues because they're pretty incredible. Some of you may have heard about the healthcare.gov debacle. Back in 2013, it was all over CNN, all over Fox News, all over all the news sources. It was down. Nobody could get access. I remember in tech circles, there were talks of, why didn't they just hire some of the best technologists, people who built the internet, people who built the best services throughout the country, and why did they hire these crazy contractors? It's because the federal government spends, I think, $80 billion in contracts, and 94% of those projects are behind schedule, and 40% never even see the light of day. It's just the state of how we do things. So healthcare.gov was a part of that. And a couple of people across industry, including some Googlers, people like Mina Shang, Mikey Dickerson, Matthew Weaver, were like, I'm just gonna go help. I'm gonna go volunteer. I know how to keep google.com up, so maybe I can keep this website up. And at the time, if you look up this talk, I kid you not, the way this team figured out if healthcare.gov was up is they turned on the news, or they literally went to healthcare.gov. So for those of you who have built products, there were no analytics, no way of tracking, and the different teams are not held accountable. So we just brought in things that are best practices, are normal here in tech, and turned that around, and that team turned that around so it's stable. And millions of people were able to get healthcare. Over 100 million people who were previously denied care because of pre-existing conditions, like you randomly get cancer or die, some kind of disease, now have access to care. So that team was pretty incredible. Something else, an area that I worked on, veterans. Some of you may have heard in the news that some vets wait 2 years, a year and a half to get care. Part of that is just a policy, human resources problem. Part of that is tech. People come and or submit claims, and they just don't get processed. One example is this thing. This took about 10 years for contractors to build. And so the reason this exists, it's for spinal cord injury patients. They have special motor records and different kinds of things that are just different than any other patient, so they had to have a special system. So they hired contractors to build this thing. It came with a 133-page user manual. Think of the last time you've ever had to even open a user manual. You don't open one to figure out how to use Google Maps, how to use Gmail. You don't open one to figure out how to send an email or make a filter. But that's just the state of technology. So within a few months, our team built something in Postgres and Rails. One database. Before, this was 24 different instances. So if you ever asked anyone, how many spinal cord injury patients are there, you'd get a different answer across the board. So there was no real source of truth. So this is a very small project that just showed the power of what you can do when you add the patient and the user to what you're building. Immigration. Some of you may have had experience trying to get a family member into the US, or know people who got married and they have these stories of waiting months or years to get their spouse into the US. So some of that is because it takes a while to interview, et cetera. But some of that is because you have this massive mound of paperwork to fill out, and it's really confusing, especially if English maybe isn't your first language. So before, there was something like this. You had to go to the website, figure out which form you might need. Is it an immediate relative? Is it a third cousin? Is it a spouse? Et cetera. It was really confusing. That became this. This team was led by Vivian Grobauer, who's a technologist, an awesome policy guru who led this team to turn that around and make something a little more user-friendly. It means that something like this, a form you had to fill out on paper and mail in, became something like this online that is much, much more user-friendly and much more familiar to many people today. I love this slide. Vivian included this in her Grace Hopper, her talk, and somebody had found this on the Metro and gave it to her in DC. So apparently picking up pieces of paper in the Metro station can be helpful. What this is a list of forms this person had to fill out to get a family member into the US. And the $25,000 number at the bottom is basically the poverty line in the US, so it's the amount of money you have to prove that you have in order to support a family member coming so they don't become a dependent of the United States. So it means that this person had this number at the top of their mind, whatever that might mean as a whole. But overall, it's a really crazy, confusing process. Most people don't go around and say, I worked with USCIS or immigration, it was the best experience ever, and I just recommend it to everyone. And that would be awesome if we got to that. It's not impossible, right? We could make some of these experiences just as amazing as ordering a car on your phone or getting food delivered to your house in 15 minutes. So that's why we're here. Education. Many of you in this room probably went to college, and you may remember how hard it was to just figure out what schools to apply to. If you just search for best colleges, you get this whole list ranging from Business Insider, Forbes, Times, many, many third-party sites that have totally arbitrary ranking systems on how they rank a college. And that's what students rely on. The government has the data, just in the past it hasn't really released it, hasn't totally made it open. So there's a team led by Lisa Jalopter who did little things like help launch Hulu, and executive at BET, who's now part of the federal government building digital services. Sarah Allen, who, if you've ever used the internet, have probably touched her software, because she founded Flash and After Effects. They came to work on projects like this because they, in their heart, believe the fastest way to the middle class is with a college education, and they wanted to empower students with better decision-making tools. This won't solve all of our education problems by any means, but it at least is a first step to let you know how much universities actually cost, real data on graduation rates, and real data on the salary that people make after attending, versus anything that you might see out there from a third party. But what's most powerful about this is that it completely opened up all the data, and there's an API behind this website. What that means is that any of you can go and visualize that data in any way you want and help really make a difference. It means nonprofits, counselors, and news sources can go and pull this data and have real, reliable data to display to people. So that's pretty powerful. That leads me into open data. Just this idea of making our government more transparent for the people. Cora Zarek, who is a brilliant lawyer, works on this in the Office of Science, Technology, and Policy with Megan Smith. 66 countries around the world have collaborated to work together to make sure that all their governments make their data open to all of its people. And what that means is there are sites like data.gov. It's 160,000 sets of data. If you're a data wonk like me, you can go pull any of those sets down and do whatever cool visualizations you want, ranging from business, agriculture, education, energy, police data, et cetera, and come up with really interesting things about what's going on in this country. Or we have this thing called the Digital Analytics Dashboard, where you can see how citizens are interacting with all of our websites today. What's even cooler about this is that because everything was also developed in the open, you can grab the code from GitHub today. The city of Philadelphia has their own digital analytics dashboard, and the country of Mexico is coming up with their own data.gov. It's pretty cool, and we can collaborate around the world that day just through open code. It's like techies uniting around the world. It's pretty awesome. So the last thing I'll talk about is the thing that is the absolute closest and dearest to my heart. Two things. Number one, the Precision Medicine Initiative. The president announced this last year at the State of the Union address, and a team of very talented people like DJ Patel, Amina Shang, and Claudia Williams have been working together to make this a reality. So what's precision medicine? It means that today, if you're an 80-pound, 55-year-old Asian woman or a 200-pound Caucasian male, and you came into Stanford or any hospital with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, both of you may get vincristine, and the doctor might say something like, quote, "Cross fingers that it might work this time," and not know why it doesn't work, and not know why it works for only a small part of the population. And you look at the two people, and you immediately think, well, they're obviously just two different human beings with totally different backgrounds. And we don't have the data or we have the data, but we don't have it compiled in a way where we can analyze them to figure out how two totally different people will react to the exact same kind of treatment. So we're looking to do that, combining genomics and background data of people to give better health care to all people. And then some of you may have heard about something called the Cancer Moonshot. This is something that Vice President Joe Biden feels extremely passionate about. It's something that several of us here in the White House also feel very passionate about. And I particularly love this name for multiple reasons. One, I was a Googler, and we always use this to refer to all the projects that were kind of out there. And then also, it kind of came full circle, because the original moonshot was our literal shot to the moon, where we went to the moon. And some of these things seem impossible. It seems like it might have not been possible to go to the moon. It seemed like having hot air balloons give Wi-Fi was impossible, self-driving cars. And the thought of curing cancer is something that's thrown around a lot, and sometimes that also doesn't seem possible. But we just believe that we can do it. So those are two of the health initiatives that just really, really excite me that the White House has its fingers in today. So what that means is whether you are in design or product or policy or engineering, if your passion is education, STEM, immigration, or you just like solving really crazy, giant, big tech problems that are really, really, really hard, with folks who have the best intentions but never really knew much about user-centric design or shipping products or doing these number of things that you may be used to just in your industries, there's so much room for you to come help build a more awesome government for all the people, by all of us, today at the local level, at the federal level. You can go work at any city or state government, come to the federal level at USDS, 18F, Presidential Innovation Fellows, work for Code for America, where they are literally coding for America, and help us be a more awesome government. And you can find out more at whitehouse.gov/USDS, or reach out to me and we can chat more after this. Thank you.